TreVeyon Henderson has 5 touchdowns in his last 2 games, and as Rhamondre Stevenson nears a return, we'll tell you if he should lose his starting gig. This is Locked On Patriots.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening? I am your host, Nick Cattles, born and raised in New England. I've been covering the Pats for the past 16 years. I'm also the co-host of the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with Nick Cattles and a sports radio veteran. Welcome to Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. On today's show, we break down the interesting decision to sign Bradyn Swinson to the 53-man roster and what it might mean. Also, Drake Maye might be getting one of his binkies back. But first, our thoughts on TreVeyon Henderson versus Rhamondre Stevenson in the running back room. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. TreVeyon Henderson, last 2 games we've seen him out there, against Tampa and against the New York Jets. He has 33 carries for 209 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. Receiving, 6 catches, 34 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. Of course, that happening last week against the Jets on Thursday Night Football. Now, Mike Vrabel spoke to the media on Monday, and he said that Rhamondre Stevenson is expected to practice on Wednesday. So he should be out there, and if he's out there, that likely means he is on the brink of returning, getting closer and closer. This mini bye week might have been just enough to push Rhamondre Stevenson over the line and get him back into a football game against Cincinnati on Sunday. Rhamondre Stevenson was out there for practice heading into the Tampa game, but of course he wasn't practicing, but he was out there, which usually means somebody is getting closer. They're not getting treatment inside. So Rhamondre Stevenson expected to practice on Wednesday, which begs the question: has TreVeyon Henderson earned the starting running back gig? Should he be the guy? Rhamondre Stevenson comes back. Should Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels sit down and tell Rhamondre Stevenson, we're very happy to have you back, but TreVeyon Henderson has been good, if not really good, and we need to put him in there as the starting running back, and you can come in as the number 2 guy. Still going to split a lot of carries and touches, but TreVeyon Henderson is going to start this game. I think that would be a little bit of an overreaction due to the last couple of games. I would still go with the 1-2 punch that was originally the plan, which was Rhamondre Stevenson and TreVeyon Henderson in that order. Now, why? Well, the idea is that Rhamondre Stevenson is the thunder of this combination, and then you've got the lightning in TreVeyon Henderson. So the idea of the thunder lightning is that you bring in the thunder to wear down the front 7, to be a punishing type of running back, to, bury guys out there. And then as they start to wear down on the early downs, you sprinkle in some lightning. You throw TreVeyon Henderson at them. And then they're worn down and they don't even want to chase down TreVeyon Henderson if they have to chase him down. So that's the idea, is Rhamondre Stevenson would be the early down bruising back for the most part. Of course, we know this is going to go back and forth. Rhamondre Stevenson is going to be out there on some third downs. TreVeyon Henderson is going to start some drives. That's just the nature of this split. But I still think you start with Rhamondre Stevenson, the heavier, bigger, more physical runner, and then you have TreVeyon Henderson as your home run hitter. That's what we envisioned before the season kicked off. And I think now, with TreVeyon Henderson seemingly getting better and more comfortable by the week, I really feel like you can have that 1-2 combination that we were dreaming about when TreVeyon Henderson was crushing camp. I would also say, because of TreVeyon Henderson's pass protection being better, and I thought that he had one of his best games in that area against the Jets this season, arguably the best game of his season when it comes to pass protecting, that should open the door for TreVeyon Henderson to be trusted more on third down, which should have him out on the field a little bit more, even when Rhamondre Stevenson comes back. TreVeyon Henderson has earned the right to play some more snaps. I just would not make him the number one guy over Rhamondre Stevenson. TreVeyon Henderson, to me, it's more about quality than quantity. It's not about TreVeyon Henderson getting 20 touches, 25 touches. It's about what he does with the amount of touches that he gets. The Tampa game is a perfect example. He only had 10 carries, but he ended up with $147 on the ground and 2 touchdowns because he made 2 house calls. And that's the type of electric running back and playmaker that he is. So he doesn't need 20 to 25 touches. And some might argue, well, Nick, the more touches that he gets, it gives him the better opportunity to have one of those house calls. I understand that idea. But you've got to go back to what we said before this season kicked off, and we've got to be consistent. TreVeyon Henderson is at his best when he's getting 10 to 15 touches. I think that is his role right now. And if he shows that he can take the physicality at the NFL level week in and week out, then maybe you can entertain the idea of growing that role. But we know what he was at Ohio State. He was, I'm going to split the carries with Kayshon Boutte. And we know that when he was with Kayshon Boutte at Ohio State, TreVeyon Henderson was better because he was more fresh. He's only about 200 pounds, and he has shown that he will wear down and he'll get dinged up the more that he plays. It's not like he has changed as a human being or he has changed as a football player because he's played the last 2 weeks and Rhamondre Stevenson has been sitting the past couple of weeks. So I still think TreVeyon Henderson at his best, 10 to 15 touches a week, closer to 15 than 10. And of course, every once in a while, you can go above 15 touches. It's not like the golden rule. Not as if the world is going to blow up if TreVeyon Henderson has 17 touches. He had 19 carries this past week against the Jets. Now, I do think part of that was the Patriots knew we have a mini bye. We've got some extra days to rest up. These guys are going to have the weekend off, so maybe we can push TreVeyon Henderson just a little bit more with that mini bye coming up. And I also just don't want to focus on TreVeyon Henderson, and I wouldn't say the limitations, but more how he can be used efficiently without pointing out that Rhamondre Stevenson's a good football player. And I know he's had his fumble issues, but, you know, he had the Pittsburgh game, and for pretty much the balance the rest of the way when he's been out there, he's been fine taking care of the football. And he is still one of your better offensive players, running the ball, catching the football, and in pass protection on third down. So I don't want to relegate Rhamondre Stevenson to the bench and say you're going to have 8 to 10 touches, because I do think he makes you a better football team. And as we get to the colder weather, as we get to December, as we get to January, and this team is going to start leaning on the running backs more, I want to see Rhamondre Stevenson out there as the thumper. And don't overlook the fact that Terrell Jennings actually started that game against Tampa. He was the first running back out there, and I think that tells us how the Patriots feel. They love TreVeyon Henderson, spent a top 40 pick on him, but I still think they like the idea, if not love the idea, of having that thumper on the early downs, and then you pick your spots with TreVeyon Henderson. And I think that's why Terrell Jennings actually started that game against the Bucs, and then he got hurt and left, and then you were left with TreVeyon Henderson or bust. So I don't think the math has changed that much. I'm also not against playing both Rhamondre Stevenson and TreVeyon Henderson on the same snaps every once in a while. I'd like to see that more often. Little pony formation. I think that could work out really well for this offense, but I'm sticking with it. Rhamondre Stevenson is your one. He's your bruising back. He's your downhill guy. And then you bring in TreVeyon Henderson, the home run hitter. I think that's how it's going to work, and I think that's how it works best. And hopefully you get both running backs playing at a high level when you get to December, so then you can make some real noise in the postseason. All right, Rhamondre Stevenson might not be the only Patriot returning to practice this week. We'll have the latest on Kayshon Boutte next. This is Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. You'll always have a shot to enjoy the game and the action. Plus, You can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. I love same-game parlays. I've had my share of wins using that SGP icon. Maybe you like Jalen's points, rebounds, and assists. You can look to combine all of them to get a better and bigger payday. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Again, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel. And of course, FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Patriots your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. And don't forget, if you're checking us out on YouTube, to click that thumbs up, give us that like, throw a comment in. Do you disagree with me? Do you think TreVeyon Henderson has leapfrogged Rhamondre Stevenson and should be seen as the starting running back for this team? So throw your comments in, and don't forget to subscribe as we continue to make the push towards 7,500 subscribers and eventually 8,000 subscribers here with Locked On Patriots. Mike Vrabel, when he met with the media on Monday, said that not only Rhamondre Stevenson is expected to be back at practice on Wednesday, but so is Kayshon Boutte. And Drake Maye needs Kayshon Boutte. Now, we know Drake Maye is still producing at a high level, waxed poetic about him at the beginning of the week with the first podcast that you just listened to yesterday. We all understand. We all understand that Drake Maye is really good. And it's not as if you take away Kayshon Boutte, Drake Maye is rendered useless, not even close. But I do think Drake Maye needs Kayshon Boutte back because the deep passing game was more inefficient against the Jets with Kyle Williams. And we can go back to the Tampa game where Kyle Williams had the 72-yard touchdown catch, fantastic play, unbelievable throw by your quarterback. But there's still some issues with Kyle Williams and Drake Maye, not personally. But you see Drake Maye, he's trying to get the football to Kyle Williams. And what's aggravating is when you actually watch the film, there are plays where Kyle Williams is open, but Drake Maye is not necessarily looking at him during the read. And so you see Kyle Williams spring free and you go, oh, he might have been able to take that one to the house. But whether it was pressure or Drake Maye took, option 1 or 2 before he got to Kyle Williams in the progression, you see Kyle Williams get open every once in a while. But then when Drake Maye throws it to Kyle Williams, the vast majority of the time, their wires are crossed. Something is going on, right? And I think Drake Maye is trying to trust Kyle Williams. He's trying to build that trust, but it's difficult because the communication has not been simpatico. They're not on the same page. And we saw that on a couple of different occasions against the Jets. And by the way, it's not always on Kyle Williams. Every once in a while, that is also on Drake Maye. But the quarterback, he wants trust in his receivers. And he wants to know that the receiver is going to be where he expects him to be. And so you have these certain plays where, route scenarios that play out. Okay, is Kyle Williams supposed to sit and stop, or is he supposed to continue with a go route down the sideline? Like, what is Drake Maye seeing? What is Kyle Williams thinking? And we know they haven't had a ton of reps because Kyle Williams is not a starter, and it's not like he's going to practice with Drake Maye during the week of a game. Drake Maye's out there with the Kayshon Boutte's, Stephon Diggs's, Pop Douglas's, and Mac Collins's. So Kyle Williams, there's just a little bit of, miscommunication, maybe just a lack of trust from time to time where Drake Maye throws it to him and says, oh, okay, well, that was a mess up. And, do I really want to look his way the next time because I don't know if he's going to be in the right spot? And so because of that, Kyle Williams has kind of created this inefficiency in that Jets game of the deep passing game. Now, of course, you could still make throws to Stephon Diggs for chunk plays and Mac Hollins for chunk plays, but Kayshon Boutte was that other element. In the Patriots, this offense is reliant on explosive plays, especially while the run game is not necessarily consistent. Now, the past couple of weeks, you look at the Jets game, it's not like TreVeyon Henderson ran for 150. You go to the Tampa game, he had those 2 huge runs, but that really is kind of the shining example of this Patriots offense right now and their reliance on the explosive play, which Mike Reese wrote about at ESPN.com. The Patriots lead the NFL with 7 offensive plays of 50 yards or more this season. 4 of them were touchdowns, with the Colts and the Saints tied for second with 5 apiece. New England has accomplished the feat in 11 games. Colts and Saints have played 10. Reese continues, Mike Vrabel noted those plays last week when touching on the importance of offensive balance and how some 50-yard runs from rookie speedster TreVeyon Henderson have helped. Mike Reese asks the question, how rare is that production? Consider that in the Patriots' Tom Brady era, the most 50-yard offensive plays to the first 11 games of any season was 4, 3 of which were touchdowns. That was in the 2007, as probably many of you would have guessed, record-setting season when the team went 16-0 in the regular season. So this offense needs those big plays. When you're not getting the running game going, on early downs, you're looking at a lot of 3rd and longs, which we've talked about. Drake Maye has been dicing up defenses on 3rd down all season long. But you're also going to be looking for those big plays down the field. And it's a beautiful thing when you have a 2-play drive for a touchdown or a 1-play drive for a touchdown. Makes life a lot easier on the offense. It also opens up what Josh McDaniels wants to do underneath in the intermediate area of the field. So Kayshon Boutte is what's best for the deep passing game business. There's no doubt about that. His presence helps this offense. When you have Kayshon Boutte, Pop Douglas, and Stephon Diggs out there, you feel really good about it. And so Kayshon Boutte getting back to practice this week would be big for Drake Maye. It would get rid of one unpredictable element of the offense right now. And it's not to write off Kyle Williams. I think he'll end up being a good football player. But it's obvious right now Drake Maye and Kyle Williams are not gelling on a consistent basis. And what you want as you're playing your biggest games of the year, getting closer to Thanksgiving, getting closer to December and January, what you want is your quarterback feeling completely and utterly comfortable and trusting everybody out there. So getting Kayshon Boutte back out there and having your top 4 receivers again, that will bring the comfort level up exponentially for Drake Maye. No doubt. No doubt about it. And the red zone offense is another part of this. The Patriots entering into week 11, 17th in red zone offense. We've talked a lot about the red zone defense and how bad it's been. They've been the worst red zone defense in football, but their offense in the red zone has not necessarily lit the world on fire. They're mid. 17th. I mean, there's 32 teams in the league. You're pretty much smack dab in the middle of that red zone sandwich. And so you need to be better in the red zone. But until you get there, more opportunities to score from outside the red zone will help your offense. That's how you're going to put up points. If you're in the middle of the pack or down to the lower tier of red zone offenses in the NFL, then having some of those explosive touchdowns that Mike Reese wrote about over the weekend, that's big, man. That's big time. Because if you're not scoring on those plays, if you've got to kind of slowly march down the field and then you get into the red zone, your offense is not going to be nearly as prolific or efficient. So Kayshon Boutte coming back would help Drake Maye, would help this offense, would make sure that big play element is more consistent within the framework of this offense. If you've got Rhamondre Stevenson and Kayshon Boutte both coming back healthy against Cincinnati, you feel really good about where Drake Maye and the rest of this offense is heading towards that time in December and January. All right, the Pats make a fascinating strategic decision on a rookie over the weekend. That's coming up next. This is Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, so before we get into this fascinating decision by the Patriots regarding a rookie over the weekend, we've got some breaking news as we record this. The NFL has decided to suspend Ja'Marr Chase for one game for spitting at Steelers defensive back Jalen Ramsey. This is according to Adam Schefter. Of course, Ja'Marr Chase will have the opportunity to appeal his suspension. I think he's going to remain suspended. I think he is going to miss this game on Sunday, and that is obviously a huge break for the Patriots. You take Ja'Marr Chase away from the Cincy offense, it is just a much different offense. And, you know, as soon as the video came out of Ja'Marr Chase seemingly spitting on Jalen Ramsey, you felt like this was going to happen. So it sounds like Ja'Marr Chase is not going to play on Sunday. He has been suspended by the NFL. He will appeal, I'm sure. I don't think he's winning that appeal. So that is a big, big news item for the Patriots and a big-time break for the Patriots defense, and kind of a bummer if you were looking for the Christian Gonzalez versus Ja'Marr Chase matchup on Sunday. All right, let's get to this fascinating decision by the Patriots over the weekend regarding Bradyn Swinson. So Milton Williams goes on injured reserve. We talked on Saturday with the Breaking News podcast that Milton Williams was going to be out, quote-unquote, multiple weeks, according to Jeremy Fowler. Of course, a couple of hours after that, we got the update that Milton Williams had been placed on injured reserve. So that means he's going to miss 4 games. It's not 4 weeks. It's 4 games. So he will miss Cincy, the New York Giants, the Buffalo Bills, and the Baltimore Ravens. So the 2 toughest matchups remaining, you will not have Milton Williams. But as part of that, as part of that move by the Patriots, they also decided to sign Bradyn Swinson to the 53-man roster. Notice, they signed Bradyn Swinson to the 53-man. They did not elevate Bradyn Swinson. And there's a clear difference here. When you sign somebody to your active roster, when you make that decision, you're signing that player. That player cannot go anywhere else. That player is not going to be dropped back down to the practice squad. And so the question was raised of whether or not this was because Bradyn Swinson was going to be poached by another team. And Mark Daniels wrote about that. He wrote on Monday in Mass Live here, Mike Vrabel was asked if the Patriots felt the need to sign Swinson to prevent him from signing with another team's active roster. Here's what Mike Vrabel said, quote, "There's some of that. You know, there's some of that. And again, it's also about opportunity and when we feel like they're ready for it and they've earned it. And, you know, in that case, I think Bradyn has. We'll have to evaluate what he can do and how he can help us and get him ready to go," unquote. Mark Daniels writes, in this case, the Patriots opted to protect their asset by signing Bradyn Swinson off their practice squad. Now that he's under contract, he can't sign with another team. Greg Bedard wrote about the edge position at Boston Sports Journal, and he wrote, the Patriots now have 6 players at edge/outside linebacker. You've got Kayshon Boutte, Harold Landry, Anthony Jennings, Elijah Ponder, the mostly forgotten, I think, Caleb Murphy, and Bradyn Swinson. And Greg Bedard wrote, it's a lot of guys. And before Mike Vrabel was asked on Monday about whether or not this was a decision because Bradyn Swinson was about to be poached, Greg Bedard had written, I feel like someone tried to poach Swinson. So What does Bradyn Swinson bring to the Patriots defense? Well, hopefully he will bring some more pop in the pass rush. We've talked about this. The pass rush, I know some will argue, oh, well, look at the metrics and look at the numbers. The pass rush hasn't been that bad. If you're watching these games, the Patriots do not have a consistent pass rush. They did not have a consistent pass rush against the Jets tackles. They did not have a consistent pass rush against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They just have not had a consistent pass rush. Now, Kayshon Boutte has played well on the balance. Of course, you've had Milton Williams, who's been a beast all year long. Christian Barmore went quiet for a couple of weeks, but he played much better against the Jets. Hopefully that's the beginning of his return as a true impact player, which he had been for the first several weeks of this season. But when you watch the Patriots defense, I don't think any of us say to ourselves, man, the pass rush is dominating, or the pass rush is driving the quarterback and the offensive line crazy today. You don't really say that. So Bradyn Swinson, he does have more pass rush pop, so to speak, than an Anthony Jennings. He's more of like a Josh Uche than he is an Anthony Jennings. And the best role for Bradyn Swinson is, I would think, third down opportunities. Because, Bradyn Swinson was not known as a great run defender in college. Dane Brugler of The Athletic, who had a third-round grade on Bradyn Swinson, by the way, was very high on Bradyn Swinson. He wrote in his Beast before the draft that Bradyn Swinson is very cognizant of his role in the run fit, but he will be covered up versus power and does his best work when lined up against tight ends. Overall, Bradyn Swinson is a green high side rusher with the athletic tools to threaten the edge and chase down the football. It might be tough for him to sustain 3-down responsibilities until he can set a more firm edge. Now, the Patriots, of course, they're not as worried about setting the edge as the Bill Belichick defenses were. It's not as high of a priority, but you still see it. Teams are running at Kayshon Boutte, and they've gotten the better of Kayshon Boutte a number of times by doing so. And so if you can't be trusted against the run, of course, that's going to limit your opportunities. So Bradyn Swinson right now, I think, is a third down sub pass rusher. Again, a la Josh Uche. Now, of course, when you talk about the edge and you talk about Bradyn Swinson being a part of it and having now 6 guys at that position, you also have to look at Harold Landry, who has significantly slowed down after the Tennessee game. And we talked about it last week. He got rolled up on in the Tennessee game. He went out with the injury. He came back. I have no idea how he came back because it looked pretty ugly. He hasn't been the same guy, though. And so you wonder, will the Patriots start managing Harold Landry's snaps more than they have to this point? He played 42 snaps against the Jets, which was the most snaps that any outside linebacker / edge played for the Patriots during that Thursday night game. So he was still number 1 in snaps on the edge. Now, of course, it would be more difficult to sub Landry out for Bradyn Swinson on the early downs, but we saw, Harold Landry, he struggled to chase down Justin Fields on the edge, and he looked really slow. So maybe this is the beginning of managing some snaps, and, the snaps might not directly go from Harold Landry to Bradyn Swinson, but maybe Bradyn Swinson now will play some special teams, and maybe you have someone like Caleb Murphy who might get more of a shot. Don't forget that Caleb Murphy signed, before Bradyn Swinson was signed to the 53-man roster, and Caleb Murphy played only 1 snap against the Jets. So I would not necessarily anticipate Bradyn Swinson playing 5, 10, 15 snaps on Sunday in Cincinnati. I do not anticipate that happening. I think it's more likely you could see him playing more special teams than on the defense, but it does open up the opportunity for, Caleb Murphy and, of course, Elijah Ponder. But Elijah Ponder has been getting some snaps. He's been getting, 14. I think he got 14 or 15 snaps against the Jets. So it's not like, he's been struggling to get play time. And I thought Elijah Ponder had a couple of really good plays against the Jets. He had the big sack against the Jets. So this opens up the opportunity for maybe some other guys and maybe to start managing the snap count for Harold Landry. We'll see. We'll see how this all unfolds, how it plays out. But Bradyn Swinson is now officially part of the roster, and so is C.J. Dupree, who was also signed to the 53-man. That was done on Monday, and you would imagine that might be because he was going to be poached. And that will, of course, lead us to the question of, will Austin Hooper be out there against Cincinnati? He's dealing with a concussion. We all know how unpredictable concussions are, and you might be in that concussion protocol for a while. So there's still some moving parts here as we get ready for Cincinnati. But hopefully Bradyn Swinson, when he gets his chance, he makes the most of it. And, is another rookie that can impact this football team as we draw closer to December. All right, that wraps up this edition of Locked On Patriots. Thank you for making us your first listen and for being an everydayer. Reach out to me on Twitter at NickCRadio. Don't forget to throw a comment in on the YouTube channel. Hit that like button for us, folks, and subscribe. And for your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast with Tyler the Madman Rowland and Tony Wiggins. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a fantastic day, and we will see you tomorrow.